Okay, excellent. So it looks like people got the email and they found the link and they found the classroom location, which is great. That's a good start. I've never, never started a semester online before. I've only started a semester in person and then transitioned to online midway through. So this will be my first time introducing a class in this kind of bizarre format that we're now getting more used to, I guess. So yeah, we've got a healthy 31 people in the meeting right now, which is I think about what we were expecting. There might be one or two more that we're still waiting on, but I'll go ahead and get started. Um, yeah, so my name is Aaron Cook. I'm a visiting professor of economics at Colby College. Pretty recently, I only got hired a couple weeks ago, and I'm jumping right in to teach this environmental economics course, which I'm very excited about. I've taught similar courses like this a number of times before, and this is always one of my favorite classes to kind of go over just kind of the logic and the way of thinking of economics and the way that that applies to environmental pollution and natural resource issues. Um, so why don't we start? I'm going to start by pulling up the syllabus. Let me try to share my screen. Okay, so I have a syllabus here that I just finalized and posted yesterday. It has my obviously my contact information at the top. You can email me at this email address here. That's the one that I'll be using for correspondence for this course. And then if I have my Zoom meeting link up here as well. So anytime, if you want to schedule a meeting with me, either in office hours, or if you want to schedule an appointment outside of office hours, this will be the link that you can use to set up a meeting or to enter the meeting. Okay, yeah, I think, let's see. Yeah, so I mean, this course is about, it's really about considering trade-offs. It's about considering trade-offs with respect to different uses of the environment. So you have, for example, like a water resource like the Colorado River, which starts in the Rocky Mountains in eastern Colorado, and it's fed by snowfall up in that region, and that snow melts and it eventually becomes the Colorado River. And then along the Colorado River between eastern Colorado and the Pacific Ocean, there's all kinds of ways that water is withdrawn and used for various purposes. Some of it is withdrawn to feed agriculture, to grow crops, to grow either grapes, for making wine, or avocados in California. There's other uses. A lot of it's withdrawn, obviously, for municipal purposes. People obviously have a lot of household uses of water, and so municipalities will acquire water to supply their residents. Water is also used for transportation. It's important to keep a certain level of water in order for boats of a certain size to be able to navigate through a certain stretch of the river. And so part of the water, if you want it to be able to be used for navigation or transportation, you have to maintain a certain water level, which means you can't withdraw it. So there's competing uses there. There's water that's used for producing hydroelectric power. There's water that's just sitting in the environment, maintaining habitat for different kinds of fish and other wildlife. And so you have all these uses. You have agriculture, municipal uses, industrial uses, transportation, habitat protection. All these sorts of things are ways that, for example, just a particular water resource is used. And the question is, what's the best way to use it? Like, how do we make choices between those different uses? How do we decide how much should be used for one purpose rather than another? That's a very difficult question. It involves a lot of different people. And somehow we have to coordinate that. Somehow, as a society, we have to coordinate using water for all those different things. And that's really at the heart of what environmental economics and natural resource economics is about. Is how do those um, how do those decisions get made, and how should we get made? If we have time to sit and think about it, if we have time to reflect on the issue, what would a good outcome look like? What would we want? Um, how would an ideal outcome look? And we can, we can sit back and plan and start to design ways of doing that, which work better than others. And so that's kind of what this discipline is about, is thinking carefully about those trade-offs and thinking carefully about those choices. So that's kind of a broad, or just kind of an introduction to some of the ways that this way of thinking is applied to natural resources. We're going to start with kind of just a couple weeks of introduction, giving a broad overview, doing some review of microeconomics, and then we'll get into the theory. This part one of the course is kind of it's kind of abstract, a little bit abstract. We'll be using a little bit of graphical analysis to just consider concepts in economics and how they map onto the real world as it relates to environmental and natural resources. So we'll talk about the theory for a good chunk of the course. About half the course will be just laying the groundwork, getting practice and familiarity with the core theory, and then we'll get into, after overviewing that theory, we'll get into some particular natural resource and environmental issues in which we'll apply the theory that we learned, and we'll study those issues kind of with the theory that we just talked about in mind. And that's kind of roughly how the course is broken down. A lot of theory in the beginning, and then applications starting in the middle to the end of the semester. Okay. I have a textbook that I'm going to be teaching out of this semester. It's going to be this Harrison Roach Environmental Economics, Environmental Natural Resource Economics book. It's the one that I use to prepare lectures, and the ones that I drew material from for the course was the 4th edition. And so if you want all of the figures and the the examples and all the content to map on precisely to what I'm doing, the 4th edition is what I was using to prepare the course. And so that will ensure, if you get the 4th edition, that will ensure that everything is corresponding. The chapter numbers are the same, and the figure numbers and everything are the same, and everything's in the same order. I was just looking at this. A lot of the main ideas are still in the 3rd edition, and I haven't done a comprehensive side-by-side comparison to figure out exactly what's in the 4th edition that's was maybe left out of the 3rd edition. But from what I can tell, the 3rd edition has most of the core ideas that we're going to be talking about in class. The 4th edition came out, I think, in 2016 or 17. The 3rd edition was maybe 2012, 2011, something like that. And so it's a little bit older, but I think it still has a lot of the same core ideas. And so if you prefer to go for the 3rd edition, I think that would probably be okay. I haven't done a comprehensive review of exactly how they're different, but I think you could probably get by with the 3rd. But if you wanted to make sure that everything is precisely kind of the way that I have it in my lecture notes and things like that, then the 4th edition would be what you want. There's also an option to rent. You can also rent the 4th edition. I think that's like $35 for like a semester's worth of ebook. And so if you wanted to, you just have the book during the semester while we have the class, and then return it afterwards, then that would be another option for that. So office hours, I have scheduled office hours listed here on the syllabus. I tried to do this, keeping in mind that I think usually Tuesday, Thursdays are different, are like different, have different schedules than Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so I made office hours for myself on Monday and Tuesday from 11 to 12 p.m. And then on Wednesdays and Thursdays, 2 to 3. And so I'm hoping that if you have a Tuesday, Thursday class that's like at 2 p.m. or something like that, I'm hoping that this arrangement will allow you to still have an opportunity to come to office hours on like a Wednesday or a Monday if you have a Tuesday, Thursday situation, or vice versa if you have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday situation. So I'm planning to have four hours of office hours a week, which you can come in at this Zoom link that's on the syllabus for that. I'm also planning to. I'm still working at the details of this, but I am in the process of arranging a couple teaching assistants to help with the class, and kind of my vision for that is they'll be available also by appointment. If you have questions about homeworks or course materials as you go, you're free to reach out to them and maybe set up an appointment to talk about anything. But I think also what's worked in the past, I've heard this from past professors in this course, is that they've had the TAs give kind of like homework help sessions where like once every homework cycle, there'll be like a 2-hour block where they'll be available to just kind of give homework help kind of as the due date to that homework is approaching. And they kind of set that block aside to specifically help with upcoming homeworks. And so I'm hoping that once we can get kind of the TA situation finalized, I'll try to see if that's a possibility where we can arrange kind of a TA help session for the homeworks if you need hands-on help outside of office hours. I'm also happy to help with homeworks as well, but if for some reason you're not able to make these TA sessions could also be useful for you. So that's something that I don't have ready yet, so I wasn't able to put it on the syllabus, but that's something that I'm trying to put together. And I believe your first homework will be due sometime in week 3. So we're still a couple weeks away from that, but I wanted to just flag that as something that I'm planning and trying to make happen soon. So that's office hours. The way I'm breaking down the evaluation in the course is there's going to be 3 exams. There's going to be 2 midterms and a final. There's going to be 6 homework assignments, and I'm going to keep your highest 5 of those 6. So just to give you some flexibility, there's a number of cases as I was planning out the course calendar. There's a number of cases where there's maybe a homework due the same week that a writing assignment is due, and so if you plan well, you can make sure that it doesn't kind of build up and kind of lump together all in one and all hit you in one big wave. But in the event that you have other stuff going on too, and it gets difficult to meet all those demands at once, I do have the option. You're able to drop one homework assignment, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of just flexibility to be able to kind of pick your battles of what you want to prioritize, but you will still be evaluated on your highest 5 homework scores. So yeah, so exams, 2 midterms and a final, 6 homeworks. I'll score your best 5 of 6. And then there's a writing assignment. So let me actually before I get onto that, let me just explain. So so for the exams, we don't have, we're not meeting in a classroom, so we don't have like a room on campus, reserved for a particular time that's just for us at a certain time of day, at a certain time of the week. And so it gets a little tricky if we wanted to, get a room for a class this size, like during peak uh, classroom hours, on campus. So I've scheduled, I was able to schedule exam times, which are listed here in the syllabus. And so these are going to be outside of our regular class time, unfortunately. It gets difficult to get that classroom, especially when you need to have certain amount of distance between test takers. You require a room of a certain size, and a lot of those are not available right now because there's classes going on there. So at this time of day, so I have 2 tentative dates for the exams. These are rooms that we've reserved for your exams. Tuesday, March 16th, and Thursday, April 22nd. I've got a 90-minute block reserved for those exams. So unfortunately, that has to be outside of class, but it does give us a little bit of an advantage in that I can we just have a 50-minute class period here, but we have the ability to go for like a 90-minute chunk with this room outside of class, because it's outside of sort of the peak hours. And so what this lets me do is just give you a little bit more time. I'm not going to write an exam that's going to take 90 minutes. I'm going to write an exam that you could probably do within the time frame of the class, but this just lets us extend the time a little bit and sort of take the element of time off the table in the exams, and just let you be evaluated on what you understand about the economics, not how fast you can take the test. So that's one perhaps small advantage we have of being able to schedule these outside of class. So that's any questions about that so far? Like I mentioned, we have 6 homework assignments. I have the tentative due dates for those listed in the course calendar on the syllabus. So those are kind of distributed throughout the semester. And those are going to be kind of the main parts of the class where you get practice kind of working with the kinds of graphical and mathematical analysis that we'll be doing in this course. It's not going to be super math heavy or super mathematical, but there are mathematical concepts which help to kind of clarify the economics, and being able to manipulate those concepts and understand how they fit together and how to apply them to different situations is really part of the main skills we want you to develop in this class. And so these homework assignments are one of the primary ways that we can get practice doing that. And so these are going to be kind of challenging analytical exercises where you try to take some of the analytical concepts from class and kind of work on them on your own. And you're welcome to work together in groups and kind of discuss them with one another, form study groups and talk about what you're doing on them, talk about your process, talk about ideas for how to approach them or how to move forward. But ultimately, you do have to write your own work. So I will be expecting that you each are writing your own solutions and answers and responses to these homework assignments. Okay, and then the other uh, main component of the class is a writing assignment. It's not too long. Ultimately, it's going to be about 4 pages. That's the kind of the final product. And what I want you to do in this is choose some kind of environmental pollution or natural resource topic that you find interesting, something that you've come across in your studies that you think is important, or that it's kind of inherently interesting to you, um, and then kind of motivate the problem, explain why it's important, why it's a pressing issue, why people as a society, or as certain communities, as we should care about it, why should we care about the problem, um, and then kind of analyze it from an economic perspective. So think about what the incentives are. We have, you have this problem that exists, and I want you to kind of dissect and figure out what's the source of it. And what I mean by source is like what are um, where are the incentives misaligned? Where are people incentivized to do one thing where we would prefer, if we could coordinate our behavior, we would prefer that they would act in some other way. And so what's missing in people's individual incentives to behave in a way that produces this problem, whereas we would, if we could, somehow nudge people in a different direction, we could produce an outcome that would be more desirable. So break down kind of the source of the problem in an economic sense, in a social sense, and then talk about ways that the problem has been addressed in the past, ways that people who have encountered this problem before have tried to solve it, different sorts of measures, either governmental intervention or just kind of maybe informal kinds of remedies that have been tried or proposed, and then kind of, after kind of listing and discussing those, you want to come up with a kind of a final recommendation and make a judgment about those different remedies that you've talked about. Make some judgment, make some evaluation about which you think would be the best, lead to the best outcomes ultimately. And so there's kind of 3 parts. I've broken this down into 3 different sections, just to make sure that you have lots of opportunity to kind of first of all, get practice writing, and get practice kind of applying these concepts from class to some kind of scenario that you think is important. And you can you have opportunities here to turn in the first stage, which is just a proposal, kind of a topic proposal, and then I'll read that and grade that and give you feedback on that, and then you're able to kind of take my feedback and apply it to the next round and make adjustments where it's necessary. I mean, you'll have 2 chances. You'll have 2 kind of intermediate stages of this assignment, where you'll get a chance to turn something in and then receive feedback before the final output is due. So it's kind of a just kind of a short writing assignment that I hope gives you an opportunity to get some hands-on practice writing about an issue that you find interesting and trying to apply concepts from the course to the analysis of that problem. So those deadlines are March 19th and April 14th for the 2 intermediate stages, and then the final draft, the final 4-page paper, is going to be due Monday, May 10th. That's the final week of class. We have a Monday and a Wednesday class that week, so it's the Monday of the final week of class, week 14. So that's on top of the homework assignments and exams. This will be altogether, this will be 15% of your grade. So I'm going to make the first stage, I guess I'm going to break it down like 3% for the first stage, 5% for the second, 7% for the final. stage. And so that altogether, it'll be 15% of your grade for each of these. And you have, again, opportunity to get feedback and kind of course correct and adjust and take my comments into consideration for each subsequent draft. Okay. Any questions? Any questions on that so far? Anything, either the writing assignment or other course things? The last part of the formal grading in the class is going to be based on in-class problems and activities that I give. This will make up 10% of your grade. So I won't announce these in advance, but on certain days during the semester, I'm going to assign kind of either an individual short problem-solving exercise or maybe a group exercise that I'll break you into groups and have you work on it together. And you'll work on that. You'll wrestle with it. You'll apply your what you've learned so far to try to solve that problem. And then, you turn that in at the end of class. I think I'll probably set up a Dropbox on Moodle to submit those. And these are, these are activities that are contained inside the class. So I'm not expecting you to take these home and work on them outside of class, but, give your best effort on these in the class itself. And then turn them in at the end. And as long as you've made a good faith effort to work on the problem and kind of engage with it, then you'll get credit for that in-class assignment. So I'm using this as kind of a way to both review concepts that we've talked about during lecture. I also might use it as a way to preview things that are coming up. So if I might give you something that prompts you to think about some question on your own before we talk about it, and so you've already started thinking about it and are primed then to hear about kind of the concepts that I talk about in lecture after that. So it's a way to kind of review and preview course material and lecture material. And it's also a way for me to just encourage, attendance and participation in the class as well. So this is these are things that I won't tell you in advance when I'm going to do these. And so, if you're in class, you'll be able to work on them and get credit for it. And if you're not in class, you won't. So that's the last graded component of the class. It's these in-class problems, in addition to the homeworks, the writing assignment, and the midterms and the final. Okay, so that's all the kind of the main the graded components of the course. Are there? I'll just stop for a moment. Are there any questions about anything I've said so far? Okay, I'm going to switch. Let's see. Okay, so I want to just have an opportunity for me to kind of get to know some of you and get a sense of who's in the class and what your interests are. So I have this kind of just exercise. I want you to just take 5 minutes right now, and typically if this was a physical classroom, I'd have you take a piece of paper and then you'd hand that in at the end. I think the easiest way to do this would be just for you to draft an email. And draft, my email is aarmcook@colby.edu. Draft an email and just include this kind of biographical and information about yourself, your name, what you prefer to be called, what your major is, what year in school you are. this fourth item is an opportunity for you to just even start thinking about what's something you might want to write your paper about. So what's one issue or topic in environmental and natural resource economics that you'd be curious to know more about? And then just this fifth item is just kind of a chance for you to start thinking about a particular theme of the class. And the question here is, what is the socially optimal level of pollution? And so you can just kind of take what you know about, environmental science, or if you know something about economics already, think about that question from whatever perspective coming from right now, and answer what you think what it means for there to be a socially optimal level of pollution. So work on that for I'll give you about 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll continue with. Okay, so I've gotten a number of emails already. Those are trickling in. That's great. Just sometime before the end of class, or by the end of class, just hit send on that, and let me know your responses for that first thing. It won't be graded. It's just for my own benefit, to get to know you a little bit better, and for you to start thinking about what you might want to eventually write about. So I mentioned this just a little bit as we were talking about the syllabus. This is kind of, is my screen still visible? My screen, you can see the course overview slide here. So this is the kind of outline I have planned for the class. There's going to be a couple classes of introductory stuff, today just kind of overviewing the course, and then in the next couple classes just giving some broad themes in environmental and natural resource economics. We'll review some microeconomics that'll come in handy for the theory section when we have to analyze externalities. That microeconomic review will be very important for that. So I wanted to spend a couple classes just going over some of the important ideas: consumer surplus, producer surplus, welfare analysis. And then we'll start kind of looking at the core theory of environmental and natural resource economics, with externalities, common property resources. We'll think about intertemporal issues. How do we think about the best way to use a resource over time? If it has a finite life, how do we use it best between two periods in time, or think about maybe even trying to use it over an infinite time horizon? What would be the best approach to managing something that's scarce over time like that? Environmental valuation. We have ways that we can value market goods very easily. We look at their prices. We have sellers and buyers sort of interacting in markets, which produces prices, and that lets us quite easily put value on things that are traded in markets. But for things that aren't traded in markets, we don't have regular kinds of prices to go off of. So we have to look for other means of coming to some valuation of what those things are worth to people. And that's what that environmental valuation section will deal with. That kind of leads naturally into benefit cost analysis. Just kind of that's a framework for thinking about how to trade off different uses of the environment, and quantify different aspects of a project or some policy. And then the final part of the theory section is going to be analyzing different kinds of instruments, different kinds of policy instruments that have been proposed to deal with pollution problems. There's straight up regulations where companies or consumers are directly restricted in their choices. There's things like taxes where people still have choices, but they will have to pay a fee if they want to make a particular choice, or consume a particular thing, or if a producer wants to produce a particular thing, they'll be assessed a fee. Another way is give companies or give factories or producers of pollution, give them a right to pollute up to a certain level, and then assess them some big penalty if they exceed that, but then allow them to trade amongst one another, allow them to swap those permits with one another, and kind of reallocate according to who can reduce the pollution the cheapest. And that's something that we'll talk about more in that section. That will kind of wrap up the theory section. And then there's a number of select topics that I've chosen where we will kind of apply some of the theory that we learned to some of these issues. We'll talk about how to manage, like what it means to manage soil effectively. We'll have an economic framework for how to think about optimal soil use and how to and optimal erosion management over time, as well as other topics. How to manage a forest, how to consider the difference between cutting down the forest for lumber that can be turned into furniture or whatever, versus having the forest stay standing and allow it to continue to grow and also provide habitat for wildlife. Fisheries is a similar kind of problem where you have a resource that grows over time, that actually the growth rate of the resource is dependent on the size of the existing stock, and that introduces some interesting wrinkles into the analysis, where we have to consider how to let the stock grow and maybe harvest some of it, but not too much, so that we have a healthy growth rate the following year. So these are all kind of just examples of topics that we'll eventually get to. And we only have a couple more minutes, but I have a number of kind of puzzles, environmental and natural resource economics puzzles that I wanted to introduce. And this first one has to do with water. And we have this kind of bizarre situation where this region here, this village in India, Cherrapunji, it's only about 70,000 people, and it's one of the wettest places on Earth. They get 450 inches of rainfall per year, which is maybe the highest anywhere in the world where there's anyone living. And they have in recent years and in over the last decade or so, they've experienced water shortages. At the same time, you have this situation where Israel, one of the located in one of the driest regions of the world, they get on average 22 inches of rain per year. They have a population of 9 million. And they don't have water shortages. They have enough. They've found ways to manage their water in ways where there's not chronic shortages of water. It's a very interesting illustration of how the physical resource is not actually so important in terms of what humans are able to get out of it, and the outcomes. The human outcomes that result from a particular resource. The physical resource is only one part, and it's not even maybe the most important part. How much physical resource you have is perhaps not even the most important part of how humans are able to thrive under the conditions of using that resource. You have a situation with huge amounts of water, and you have scarcity and in India, in this village in India, whereas in Israel you have hardly any of the resource, and yet there's ways of managing it. There's ways of designing incentives and institutions, designing a society in a way that it's able to thrive and have even have a thriving agricultural sector with very little amounts of a resource. Okay, so this is kind of a puzzle I wanted to just introduce, which illustrates the fact that the physical nature of the resource is only part of the problem, and really what it is, it's a social and economic question of why some places there's enough of something and in other places There's not enough. It has to do with some invisible, kind of intangible things like incentives, um, rules, norms, institutions, policies, things like that, which have a much larger bearing on natural resource outcomes than the actual physical quantities of resources that are available. Okay. So I wanted to just kind of leave that there, and we'll pick up with this and a couple other puzzles next class. In the meantime, I'm going to look at why nobody seems to have Moodle access, and in the meantime, if you have any questions about the course, feel free to reach out and get in touch. But if there are no more questions right now, I will be. I have another class at 10, so I'll be signing off to get to that soon. So if there are any other questions, you're free to ask them now. But for the purposes of the formal class, we'll wrap up for today.